Hi again. In my previous video, I described some of the ways that your feedback helped me to improve the demo. In this video, I'd like to discuss some observations I made while watching people play the demo, and what kind of changes I'd like to make to the game in the future as a result of those observations. I'm also going to describe a couple of new features that I've put into the game recently. Let's get started. Since 2014, there has been a character in Yandere Simulator named Info-tyaN, whose role is to provide you with useful information and services in exchange for favors. Over the years, I've been giving the player more and more ways to do favors for Info-tyaN, and I've just added another one. It's something I call bounties. Info-tyaN specializes in blackmail, and every day, one of the students at school will do something that Info-tyaN can blackmail them for. For example, the student named Ryuto tells his parents that he doesn't play video games at school. So one of Info-tyaN's bounties is to take a photograph of him gaming when he's not supposed to be. Just one photo is all she needs to blackmail him. This is currently the only bounty available, but the idea is that there will be a new bounty every day, for a total of 50 separate bounties in the final game. With the addition of this feature, there are now 5 separate ways to earn favors from Info-tyaN: taking a photograph of a student's face, placing a covert listening device in a strategic location, stealing a student's phone and slipping it under Info-tyaN's door, completing a bounty, and one other method that made some people feel a little uncomfortable. But hey, don't worry about it. With so many different ways to earn favors from Info-tyaN, you have plenty of alternatives if there's one that you don't like. When I released the Yandere Simulator demo, I mentioned that the demo has so much content, I was worried that most people who played it simply wouldn't realize how much the demo has to offer, and might miss out on the majority of its content. So, I came up with a way to let the player know exactly how much of the demo they've experienced, and how much they haven't seen yet. On the title screen, you will now see an option that says Demo Checklist. This leads you to a screen where you can see a grid of images displaying every elimination method in the game. This serves as a sort of visual representation of how much of the demo's content you've experienced, and how much remains to be seen. In the future, this screen might be expanded to display other aspects of the game aside from the elimination methods, so that players are encouraged to check out the things I put into the game just for fun, such as the Yanvania minigame accessible from Yandere-chan's room. Next, I'd like to talk about an observation I've made. While I was watching people play the Yandere Simulator demo, I noticed that almost nobody bothers to dispose of corpses. The ability to clean up all evidence of your crime is supposed to be one of the big factors that separates Yandere Simulator from Hitman. But most players don't really seem to care if a corpse gets discovered, or if the cops show up at school. I think I know why. There are only 4 things that can result in the police arresting Yandere-chan: her DNA on a murder weapon, her DNA on clothing that is splattered with blood, her sanity being low when the police arrive, or at least 5 students giving eyewitness testimony that they saw her committing murder. If you simply restore your sanity and dispose of your murder weapon and bloody clothing, you're fine. You don't even need to bother cleaning up corpses, since nothing bad is going to happen to you, even if the cops show up at school. So, how can I give the player incentive to actually get rid of dead bodies? Well, in Yandere Simulator, there is a mechanic called school atmosphere that most people seem to forget about. Whenever something alarming is discovered on school grounds, like a bloodstain or a bloody weapon, the mood at school will change on subsequent days. Students will begin to look visibly paranoid and will notice your suspicious behavior much faster. This results in basic gameplay becoming more difficult in general. School atmosphere will gradually return to normal over time, as long as nothing alarming is happening at school. The discovery of a corpse is another factor that can lower school atmosphere. But perhaps it's not lowering the atmosphere enough. Maybe, to encourage players to dispose of dead bodies, the discovery of even a single corpse at school should drastically impact the atmosphere, heavily increasing the difficulty of subsequent rivals. That should convince players to clean up their messes. Additionally, maybe students should refuse to do favors for you at low school atmosphere, This means that you can't ask a student to go away, distract someone, or follow you if the atmosphere is too low. Alternatively, perhaps a new security camera should appear at school for each corpse that gets discovered. Unlike school atmosphere, which can eventually return to normal, the security cameras would remain at school until the end of the game, meaning that the discovery of even a single corpse would result in a permanent obstacle that you would have to keep in mind for the rest of your playthrough. And there's one other penalty that comes to mind too. Currently, if a student sees you covered in blood or carrying a bloody weapon, your only punishment is that you lose some reputation points. Perhaps the player should be penalized a little more harshly. If a student sees you splattered with blood and then the police arrive at school to investigate a murder, the student who saw you should report you to the police, even if they didn't actually witness you kill anyone. And if enough students report you to the police for being bloody or carrying weapons around, you would get a game over. This would give the player even more incentive to clean up corpses and make sure that the police never get called to school. Next, I would like to discuss some game design flaws that I've identified, but haven't fixed yet. Here's one of them. During the phase of the game's development where I was playtesting every elimination method, I clearly recognized that some methods were more difficult or more time-consuming than others. In some cases, this was actually intentional game design. For example, if an elimination method is very short and easy to pull off, that usually means it carries a severe consequence, like traumatizing Senpai by making him watch Osana die of poison right in front of him. And on the other hand, if an elimination method is time-consuming and difficult, that means it doesn't carry any negative consequences, such as lowering the school atmosphere or traumatizing Senpai. However, there are also quick and easy elimination methods that carry no risks or negative side effects. This kinda goes against the intended game design. I recognize that there is an imbalance, and I'll strive to do a better job of balancing the elimination methods moving forward. The last topic I'd like to talk about today is Raibaru. Her purpose is to prevent the player from eliminating Osana without doing at least a little bit of work first. There are currently 4 ways to dispose of her. You can poison her, ruin her reputation, kill her with a mind-broken slave, or talk to Budo and get a task from him that will make Raibaru leave Osana alone for a little while. It turns out that almost nobody bothers to eliminate Raibaru using any method aside from the last one. Budo's task allows you to get rid of Raibaru so quickly that you can kill Osana in less than 2 minutes. This completely trivializes Raibaru as a gameplay mechanic. I can think of 2 ways to fix this. One solution is that the player should have to perform multiple tasks for Budo in order to gain enough of his respect that he'll trust you with a task involving Raibaru. Another idea is that if every club leader is going to have a super beneficial task that makes a rival become vulnerable, then perhaps all club leaders should refuse to give you a task unless you have earned their trust by befriending each of their club members. I'm not ready to implement either of these solutions just yet, but I think that either one would be an improvement over the current circumstances. Of course, the real problem with Raibaru is that she doesn't follow the same rules as other characters. The purpose of the first rival should be to make the player become familiar with the game's core mechanics. So the first rival should not have an obstacle who exists outside of the game's normal logic. I have a lot of other things to say about Raibaru, but I think I'll save those thoughts for a future video. If you played the demo and had a bad time with it, and none of the things I've discussed so far have addressed your concerns, don't worry. I'm still completely willing to make further improvements to the game in the future. This video was just about some of the changes and observations I made recently. With my previous video and this video, I've said nearly everything I wanted to say about the demo, except for one topic: the stealth mission that plays a part in Osana's Befriend Betray elimination method. It's completely unlike anything else in the game, and there's a lot I'd like to say about it, so I'll be saving that for my next video, which I will be releasing tomorrow. Thank you for following the development of Yandere Simulator.